Hello, I'm Kim Brunhuber with breaking news from the Vatican. Pope Leo is about to elevate two new saints of the Catholic Church, including the first millennial saint. He's Carlo Acutis, an Italian young man who died of leukemia at age 15. And many have visited his tomb in Assisi, Italy, and thousands are in Rome to watch Pope Leo conduct the canonization ceremony that elevates him to sainthood. We're looking at live pictures of this right now. Born in 1991, Acutis created a website to document miracles and spread his faith. It earned him the nickname God's Influencer. His story has attracted wide attention from Catholic youth, and many are there to witness the ceremony right now. Pope Leo is also canonizing Pier Giorgio Frassati, who died in 1925 at age 24. He was also Italian and was known for helping others, and he succumbed to polio 100 years ago. All right, joining me live now is Katie McGrady, CNN Vatican analyst and host of the Katie McGrady Show on Sirius XM's The Catholic Channel, operated by the Archdiocese of New York. Thanks so much for joining me here. Really appreciate it. So I understand Mass has just started. Canonization is expected to take place about half an hour from now. Talk to me about the young man who's being canonized, Carlo Acutis, being called the first millennial saint. What do you think this means for young Catholics watching today? And do you think that could actually get more young people interested in the church again?
I think so. I mean, just a few minutes ago, before we started broadcasting the Mass, Pope Leo actually popped out and surprised everybody, said good morning, and specifically said good morning to the young people who have shown up today for the canonization. Because we know so many young adults and youth and families, my good family friends are there right now in the very back of St. Peter's Square, bringing their little ones from age 6 months to 8. There are so many people who are captivated by the witness of an ordinary teenage boy and Pier Giorgio Frassati, who was an ordinary Italian young adult. And what I think we see in them is this, oh, they're like me, but yet they pursued holiness. And so I absolutely think the trend is there. And the canonization of these two young men today is an acknowledgement of we need to put the stories of ordinary pursuers of holiness in front of the everyday folks who are watching this and have a devotion to it. And Pope Leo has talked a lot about his excitement for these two. When he popped out and surprised everybody, it was quite evident that he was excited for the morning. And so I think it's just excitement all around, and including all the way over here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's really cool that you actually have a family watching this right now. It must be an emotional moment for them. You talked about the importance of story. I mean, you work with young people through social media and modern platforms all the time. When you look at Carlo's story, this teenager who used the internet to spread his faith, what do you think young Catholics can learn from that approach?
One of the things Carlo was kind of known for was using technology to tell a greater story than just, okay, here's this code. So he could create a website about Eucharistic miracles. And so what's the thing you're interested in? What's the thing that gets you excited? And if it's your relationship with Jesus Christ, if it's this Catholic faith that you profess, well, you can just be a normal guy, a normal gal who does that, who shares that. And I think it shows us that when you pursue an interest with a heavenly thought in your head, when you are encouraged by responsibility, not only could you maybe one day be a canonized saint, but you're going to be happy. This was the thing about Carlo Acutis that I love to tell people. He was a happy kid. He was a joyful kid. He was fun. He was silly. He loved animals. His hiking as well. He was an outdoorsman, just like Pier Giorgio Frassati. And so he was a fulfilled young man. And that gives a great example of this is life with Christ, a wonderful adventure. And that's why the square is full right now.
Yeah. A couple of recurring words when you're speaking to me, normal, ordinary. I mean, Carlo's story is so different from what we might expect from a saint. I mean, he wasn't a martyr in the traditional sense. He was just a teenager battling leukemia who chose to offer up his suffering for others. And he was happy, as you said there. So how do you think that story resonates with young people who are facing their own struggles today?
I'm glad you brought that up, because the story of Carlo's death is actually, I think, a huge part of how his life is so inspiring. Carlo got sick with what they thought was a flu, and then when he wasn't responding to medication, they brought him to the doctor and discovered this leukemia. And he immediately recognized he wasn't leaving the hospital. And there's actually this one particular story when the nurse came in one night to check on him and to let him know that the priest was coming to pray with him not long from then. Carlo's mom and dad were asleep. And Carlo said to the nurse, please don't wake them up because they're going to be tired. They're going to have to plan my funeral. I don't want them to be sniping at one another. They're going to be exhausted. And so Carlo was always thinking of others, even in his suffering. He offered up his suffering for Pope Benedict XVI, who had just become Pope. And Carlo knew there was a great weight upon his shoulders. So he took that suffering, he took that hardship, which is the greatest of hardships. He died. And he said, not me, but the Lord. That's one of Carlo's most famous quotes, less of me, more of you. And he would often talk about how every single one of us is born an original, but most of us die a photocopy. And yet here was this young man who wasn't afraid to go to heaven, who wasn't afraid to be united with Christ. And so I think it shows young people and old people and everybody in between that when challenge, we can meet it with a smile, we can meet it with knowing that the Lord's grace is with us, or we can just whine. And Carlo didn't whine, he didn't pout, he wasn't sad. He recognized, well, this is the next great adventure. And that challenges young people. I tell the story of Carlo everywhere I travel when I give talks. And every single time, from little kids all the way to the adults in the room, they lean in, they want to hear a little bit more, they want to know about Carlo that has done really well because people are so captivated by it. And it's that life and that death and that embrace of suffering that ties it all together.
The focus, quite rightly, is on the canonization as we look at the live pictures happening right now. But there is something else noteworthy and unusual happening in Rome. This weekend, we also saw the first officially recognized LGBTQ Catholic pilgrimage in Vatican history. How do you think that events like this, alongside the canonization, might help young people who might feel sort of caught between their faith and their identity?
You know, the Jubilee year is an occasion of hope. And so many different groups have gathered in Rome to walk through the holy doors. Pray with him not long from then. Carlo's mom and dad were asleep. And Carlo said to the nurse, please don't wake them up because they're going to be tired. They're going to have to plan my funeral. I don't want them to be sniping at one another. They're going to be exhausted. And so Carlo was always thinking of others, even in his suffering. He offered up his suffering for Pope Benedict XVI, who had just become Pope, and Carlo knew there was a great weight upon his shoulders. So he took that suffering, he took that hardship, which is the greatest of hardships. He died, and he said, not me, but the Lord. That's one of Carlo's most famous quotes, less of me, more of you. And he would often talk about how every single one of us is born an original, but most of us die a photocopy. And yet here was this young man who wasn't afraid to go to heaven, who wasn't afraid to be united with Christ. And so I think it shows young people and old people and everybody in between that when challenge, we can meet it with a smile, we can meet it with knowing that the Lord's grace is with us, or we can just whine. And Carlo didn't whine, he didn't pout, he wasn't sad. He recognized, well, this is the next great adventure. And that challenges young people. I tell the story of Carlo everywhere I travel when I give talks. And every single time, from little kids all the way to the adults in the room, they lean in, they want to hear a little bit more, they want to know about Carlo that has done really well because people are so captivated by it. And it's that life and that death and that embrace of suffering that ties it all together.
The focus, quite rightly, is on the canonization as we look at the live pictures happening right now. But there is something else noteworthy and unusual happening in Rome. This weekend, we also saw the first officially recognized LGBTQ Catholic pilgrimage in Vatican history. How do you think that events like this, alongside the canonization, might help young people who might feel sort of caught between their faith and their identity?
You know, the Jubilee year is an occasion of hope. And so many different groups have gathered in Rome to walk through the holy doors, which for Catholics, to walk through those holy doors is to acknowledge God's grace, is to acknowledge the blessing that we receive in taking a moment to go to a place of pilgrimage. And so for men and women in the church who at times have felt maybe marginalized or ignored, who have felt as if maybe there's not a place for them, to go and to take up space, to go and to say, we're here and we want to share who we are and we want to be received. I think it says a lot that they were able to go. Now, I do want to note the LGBTQ gathering of pilgrims was not on the official Jubilee calendar, in the same way that, say, there was a Jubilee of digital missionaries, there was a Jubilee of deacons, there was a Jubilee of bands not long ago. So this was kind of an independent group that went and that made a procession through the Holy Door, just like anybody can. But Pope Leo did meet with Father James Martin, who spoke about how he had conversations with the Holy Father about LGBTQ advocacy. So I think it shows that the Holy Father is a man who listens, and the Holy Father and the Vatican are completely and totally aware of sometimes the tension that exists. And I think what it shows the wider church is that the church is not actually this secretive, exclusive organization. Look at St. Peter's Square. The colonnade is arms wide open. All are welcome and can come to this place. And in a Jubilee year, especially, those holy doors are open for people to walk through.
Yeah. It's a very poignant moment for so many people across the faith. Katie McGrady, we'll talk to you next hour. Thank you so much for speaking with us. I want to go now live on location, CNN's Vatican correspondent Christopher Lamb, who is there watching this as this is unfolding. So, Christopher, just give us a sense of the moment right now. What is taking place? As well, tell us what the atmosphere, the emotion is as people are watching this ceremony.
Well, Kim, it's a really kind of an atmosphere of great joy and anticipation here. We've just seen Cardinal Semeraro, the prefect of the Vatican Office for the Causes of Saints, make the formal petition to Pope Leo to canonize Carlo Acutis and Pier Giorgio Frassati, who are going to be formally declared as saints by Pope Leo. The way this works is that there is this petition that takes place, and the Cardinal is now reading out some biographical details of the two youthful saints. I've just been amongst the crowd here. There's people from all over the world. I caught up with some pilgrims from Pennsylvania, where there's a shrine to Carlo Acutis, and spoke to them about why they're here. They say that Carlo Acutis is someone who really helps them deal with how to navigate technology. Carlo Acutis is sort of a computer whiz kid who set up a website to document Eucharistic miracles, but he was also a young kid who loved to play on his PlayStation and make videos. And so he was someone who can offer a guide to young people, they say, when it comes to navigating sometimes the pitfalls of social media. But yeah, so today really it's an historic moment for the Catholic Church as the Pope is about to declare the first millennial saint in Carlo Acutis. It's really a huge number of people here who've turned out. Not just the square close to the altar that's packed out, it's right back to where we are here. There's must be hundreds of thousands who have come to witness this moment. Tim?
Yeah. And among the people who are there to witness it, of course, they are supporting this moment, but there is a bit of controversy because he was canonized so quickly. Take us through that.
Well, the process of canonization in the Catholic Church is often a long and arduous one. It requires documentation of an individual's life in great detail. It requires usually evidence of miracles that each saint has performed a miracle, or a miracle is attributed to their intercession. In the case of Carlo Acutis, 2 miracles, one of a Brazilian boy who was reportedly cured of a birth defect that prevented him from eating properly, and a young woman from Costa Rica, who was 21 years of age, who had a bicycle accident. Her mother reportedly went to pray at the shrine, and then he was, and then she was healed. So you have that element to it as well. So there are people who have some skepticism about this whole notion of miracles and saints, and the speed in which Carlo Acutis has been canonized is quite remarkable. Usually, it takes quite a long time for someone to be enrolled in the list of saints. So there is the speed in which this has happened, which some people question. But I think you can see from today that there is this huge following for Carlo Acutis. It's kind of developed organically. I mean, why would an Italian teenager who died of leukemia at the age of 15 suddenly get this following all over the world? And this is something remarkable to behold. And I think it's the following that Carlo Acutis has, the devotion that there is to his witness, that has led him to be canonized so quickly.
We know, at least in this country, here in the U.S., fewer people these days are going to church, and there's less engagement officially with the church. How important a moment do you think this is for Catholicism, especially in countries like this, in the U.S., having an American Pope? How important is this ceremony to sort of engage young people and perhaps bring them back to the faith?
Well, I think it is important because, as you say, the long-term trend suggests disaffiliation by young people from organized religion, although there is some evidence to say that there's an interest among Gen Z in Catholicism. And so I think these kind of moments show that the church is not something just of the past, but that it has figures who it holds up who are figures who showed how to live a good life, a holy life, today, in the here and now. And I think it is about inspiring more people to take the church seriously, take faith seriously. And it was interesting, Pope Leo came out just before the Mass started, and he gave some words of welcome, and he said to all those gathered, all of you here can become saints. So for Pope Leo, this moment is also a kind of rallying cry for young people to pursue that path of faith and holiness. So these figures, Carlo Acutis and Pier Giorgio Frassati, both of them young people, both of them live within the complexities and difficulties of their time. But I think the church is saying, the Pope's saying, look, they were able to do it, so can you.
Such a great message. CNN Vatican correspondent Christopher Lamb, thank you so much, and we'll have more from the canonization ceremony later in the hour.